they're like, you know, you're the diversity token.
You don't belong here. Where are you really from? You know, things like that.
Just, you know, I wasn't black. If you caught me at that time, I wasn't black either.
Was the kind of city when you guys arrived here and the makeup of our student population, was that anything that was considered?
So when I came to Bath, like initially, like I didn't think anything of it, but then it became harder, like as you know, the first semester went on, and it got really like it got to a point where I was like, why am I not really like connecting with the people around me? Because I guess it just helps if you're around people from like similar backgrounds as you, that you can share similar like things with, you know, people who actually understand you.
And my mom, being my mom, was like, Tamara, we're the only black people in the room. Like, I kid you not, like, out of the 150 people, it was just me and my mom, the only black, Asian, minority, ethnic people in the room. And like at the time, I didn't take too much notice of it. I was like, maybe it's just the day. You know? I was making excuses. I was like, and plus, I think I've been tainted because like the sixth form I was at was like just very white, and so I was like kind of like used to that. But then when I came here and then found myself to be like one of the 5 ethnic minority people on my course, being like one of 2 black girls on our course, like you just, the shock of that doesn't take hold of you until you're actually here.
Were there any other challenges that you guys faced in terms of kind of in lectures or living in town, like as you kind of moved off campus into private accommodation, or anything over there that was like particularly challenging that you were like, I was not expecting this to be the case?
Basically, there was a lecture that we had, I think on critical race theory at one point for political ideologies, and we were talking about contemporary racism happening in the UK and how the university sometimes as an institution keeps that system going. And people in the audience were just shocked. Like, and I was like, how can you be shocked? Like, I remember one of my classmates was shocked that workplace discrimination still happens to black people, and I'm like, this thing happened to my dad while I was living, and you're shocked that it actually happened.
Having to explain that to people because they're like, we need proof that these things are happening, and I'm like, actually, like, that's tiring for me, and I'm like, sometimes I feel like crying after having to like deal with certain people because you're arguing with me on things that you shouldn't be arguing with me about. Like, for anyone else, like, you wouldn't ask for this much explanation. I have a lot of friends who are like, I'm not racist, but like, if an incident pops off, if something happens, like, those same friends, like, not same friends, but same people sometimes will turn around and argue with me about why they can't say the N-word. And I'm like, we're not having this discussion. And for someone who's not racist, like, what is your behavior showing the fact that you're arguing with me for an hour about why you can't sing along to this song in my presence?
Like, I had a presentation to do last semester with a group, and it was on the North Ugandan Civil War, Ugandan Civil Conflict. First of all, let's talk about the fact that one of our group members thought we were doing Rwanda and not Uganda.
What?
Until the day before the presentation. He didn't even know what country we were doing. That's one. Okay. And then 2.
There are levels.
Oh my God. Two is actually worse. So at some point, I'm not sure how they got this comfortable that they felt like this was okay to do this, but they started basically making jokes about genocide. So
my God.
We were working on the presentation, and they just kind of started making light of it, like, oh, we could have pictures of someone doing genocide, shooting all these children, and then on the other side, we could just have pictures of something more like, I guess, light or something. And I'm like, and they were laughing, 3 of them. It was 4 of us in the group. 3 of them were laughing, and I was just standing literally at the back, like, silent. I did not know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I just pretended like to work on my laptop. Because at that point, what do you do? Do you just stand up and say, do you stand up and say, stop laughing? That's not funny. Everyone's gonna like.
They should.
Why should like, what's going on? At that point, I just had to keep quiet, finish my work, obviously do the presentation with them the next day, and then hope I didn't have to run into them again.
Who was like, oh yeah, I'm not racist, but I think black people should get over slavery. They act like they're so entitled, you know. They jumped in front of me when I was queuing for a taxi. It's all because of slavery. They should get over it. It happened so long ago. And I was there like
oh my God. Or even things that happened during slavery times. And so I don't know, certain arguments I don't.
It's interesting.
Crazy. It's like people are trying to absolve guilt. And I was like, you guys don't even let the Germans slide for what happened in World War I, but suddenly, like, someone turns a critical eye on you, like, it's like, oh my God, that was my ancestors, and it wasn't me, and I'm just like, you're just so hypocritical.
It's selective memory. It's selective memory on the grandest scale.
Yeah, because I get out of Bath a few times, in the sense that when I was in second year, I found myself going out to Bristol a lot. So for starters, I couldn't find any hairdressers here, so I had to learn how to do my own hair. I am not a hairstylist. I remember spending hours just watching YouTube videos like how to braid and twist and cornrow and all that stuff. It just took forever. I remember going to makeup shops and not being able to buy makeup unless I wanted to spend 3 times the price of my white counterpart just for a bottle of foundation.
It just reinforces that, like, what is here in this community is not for you.
Yeah.
And I hate that I have to go all the way to London to be like, oh, my mum can cook for me and I can find the things that I need in London. Like,
I just wanted to kind of discuss with you in terms of like your intersection between your faith as well and being Black. How was that, like, what were the challenges? What was that experience like?
Okay, so like my first and second year, I basically ignored the fact that I was Black. Basically, like, I really washed my hands of it, because like I was so like involved with like the Islamic society, and the majority of people there are like from an Asian background, and like all my best friends I kind of met through Aisha, so they're all from an Asian background. So we like watch Bollywood movies together. I literally just, you know, I wasn't Black. If you called me at that time, I wasn't Black, you know. And then I kind of like struggled, like on placement, I kind of realized, like started to reconnect with my like Black identity, I guess. And it was only because I think I was like that because like throughout my whole upbringing, I was never around any other Black people, you know. I was always like the only Black girl there, and like I felt like to fit in, I had to not be Black to like fit in, you know.
Like downplay it.
Yeah, I had to like downplay it a lot, and I couldn't like really be myself. So then on placement year, I was like, why am I like this, you know? Like, what am I doing with my life, you know? At the end of the day, like, yeah, you shouldn't have to like change the way you are. And I kind of then started to like reconnect with that. But then like I came to ACS in my final year, and I kind of, that's when I felt like I could like really just be myself, and I don't think I've been happier until this year where I could just be Black and no one would treat me different. Cause
But if I'm in the Netherlands and it's like, oh, you can't really be Dutch because you're Black, and then being here in the UK, it's like, oh, you can't really be British because you didn't grow up here, your accent is so American, all that stuff. So wherever I go, yes, I can fit in with the group to a certain extent, but I never felt like I was fully accepted because I'm not just one thing.
Like, say if you're now all going to become alumni within the next year or 2 years. If you were to come back, say 15, 20 years from now at a reunion, what would you like to see on campus change?
I'd like to see like more support for you know, students from like ethnic minority backgrounds, because like there's a great, you know, there's a great support system here in place at the university, but I feel like they can only help you to like a certain extent. If you go to them, you know, with issues related to maybe cultural or like religious or something, they're kind of stuck on where to like, how to like help, because I guess they don't have the relevant experience.
Someone said to me when I got my job, they're like, you know, you're the diversity token. And I was just like, I don't even know how to feel about that. But also I sense like when I am in places, like me being Black just sets a whole new precedent for like how people are going to tiptoe around issues. It's really hard. It's really hard to do the balancing act, because like I need to get my job done, but I also can't be a constant speaker for like Black students all the time. Not even Black, but like the whole
literally BAME.
Oh, BAME, all of BAME,
all
but then like marginalized students, because like those voices don't exist like as like BAME people. Like we don't really understand as a collective like what actually does this whole institutional racism mean for me? Like, how is it impacting me? Like, because you kind of internalize, what I've been finding is people internalize racism or they internalize bias as this is something that's just happening to me. So you're just kind of like, oh, okay, you know, shrug it off. But that's not the case. When I was on placement, I got gaslighted so much because I was like, I know these people are being like racist towards me, but because I'm the only black person here, like
nobody's gonna take your side.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or people are gonna construe you as like the angry black woman, or place some stereotype
Yeah.
on you, or make you seem bitter, or something like that. It can be really difficult to navigate, and without support, like that group chat, oh my goodness. Our placements officer came to Brussels, he sat with all of us, he asked us where we struggled, and I was like, well, I struggle sometimes with networking. He said, oh yeah, that's perfectly fine, that's perfectly normal, everybody does. And I was like, yeah, I often find myself in rooms where I'm one of the very few females, I'm the youngest person in the room, I'm the only black person in the room, and I know that with each parts of my identity, like people look at me a particular way, and I'm having trouble gauging that and like how to respond with that. And my placement officer was floored, and he couldn't tell me anything.
Oh my
He
God.
literally looked at me and he was like, I don't know what to say because I've never been through this. And I was like, well, you're the person I go to for support, so what do I do? For sure, I didn't feel like I fit in at first, but what I did find out about myself, which I was not expecting, is that I felt like I became more in tune with my Dutch and my black side. So before, I never listened to Dutch music. It was only when I moved to the UK that I started listening to Dutch rap, telling everybody like, oh my goodness, have you heard of Ronnie Flex? Have you heard of Lil Kleine? And then it was only when I went to the UK that I not only started learning about like colonial history, but when I really looked into thinkers like Frantz Fanon, like Paul Gilroy, like Bell Hooks, looking for thinkers, black scholarship, and what that meant in my own life.
I mean, we're still young, right? You're 18 to 21 or maybe 23, and you're like still trying to figure out who you are. So even though you face all these like intersections of like, I guess, discrimination, like with your own people telling you, oh, are you Nigerian? How can you do this? How can you do that? And I'm just like, there's no right way to live, guys. So I think that's okay, but at the same time, it's like, it's difficult when you're listening to voices of people literally telling you with their mouth, like the mayor of Bath telling you, oh, if you feel like you don't belong here, then maybe this isn't the city for you. I guess that's what makes it kind of like everyone's facing this, everyone from every background, black, white, Asian, whatever, are facing some kind of like personal transformation in uni. But when you're kind of dealing with that voice in the back of your head, with everyone around you kind of implying, well, you don't belong here, where are you really from, you know, things like that, kind of makes it that much more difficult for you to really discover who you are, because you're like, well, at every point, everyone's kind of pushing you away, like, okay, you're not here, then where are you, kind of thing.
Like they're trying to put you in a box, and you can never fit in that box.
Yeah, there was a definite thing of like, you're not Indian enough, you know, you're a coconut, because I've never lived in India. And there was a huge transformation for me, and yes, it's still happening in terms of it's still young, but I left high school in sixth form, I was like, oh, nailed it, like I'm at the top, like going to good uni, I know what I believe in, I know what I don't believe in, this is where I am, and this is where I'm situated politically, socially. I came here and I've had things questioned about me that was never ever questioned before, of, why are you a person of faith? I'm like that was never something that was, that I never needed to question, but it was good to question. It's always good to have that curiosity and have like always check in and have that, but then to not be included with, the Asian or the Indian community and the society there, to have difficulty fitting in with, the Arab society, the Middle Eastern society, but I grew up in the Middle East, and then also, not being British enough, obviously, because I'm not from here, I've never lived here, and then that continuous being put in a box, but then not fitting the box, and no one in that box wanting you there.
That's a bit.
So that's all from me. Thank you so much for doing this and doing this exercise. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. Great. I'm gonna clap.